good afternoon, and welcome to Rubbin Minds. My name is Isabella Adediji. Now, a lot of people have said 2020 was the year of the Nigerian youth. That was the year Nigerian youth stood up to the government. We can all cast our minds back to the 2020 protest at the Lekki Gate. People just came together across different tribes, ethnicities, religion, all came together to protest for good governance. They came with their demands. Now, 4 years later, can the Nigerian youth reprise that same energy, that same level of organization in coming together to demand for good governance? Now, to discuss the Nigerian youth, to discuss if Nigerians are really ready for protest, I'm joined by a human rights lawyer in the person of Inibehe Effiong. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for honoring our invitation. And also joining us via Zoom is a good governance advocate in the person of Joyce Daniels. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
It's good to be here again. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you on the show. Now, I'm going to go straight to Inibehe, and I just want you to cast your mind back to 2020, NSAS, the protest. Do you think that young people can organize themselves that same way in 2024, as there have been a lot of murmurings, a lot of WhatsApp messages, a lot of messages going around about a possible protest?
Thank you. I think for me, the lesson from NSAS is that when Nigerians, particularly the young people of this country, galvanize and organize towards a common purpose, they can achieve a lot. If there is one thing that we have learned from NSAS, it is that the ruling elite, the political class, is terrified by any form of organization by young Nigerians. Now, the NSAS protest witnessed for the first time, at least in my adult life, where young people came together across different parts of the country to demand police reform. But the trigger was the notorious Special Anti-Robbery Squad SARS. However, you cannot deny the fact that what precipitated that protest was largely failure of governance. So one would have thought that a government that is historically aware, a government that has a sense of historical consciousness, would have learned important lessons from NSAS, namely that it is important, it is critical to engage with the young people of our country, to begin to do things differently, and to ensure that you listen to the complaints of our people. But what have we seen since 2020?
Do you think this government is afraid of this youth, or do you think this government has been able to somehow find a way to not even allow youth to come together to protest?
I think what we have seen is the notorious strategy, if I should characterize it as such, the divide and rule. We see the government or people sympathetic to the government push this divisive narrative on social media. So when they see that young people are beginning to organize themselves, they try to poison the minds of our youth by introducing ethnicity, religious bigotry, and partisan politics into the conversation. And we see that trajectory on social media, where arguments on issues, debates, becomes polarized. And that, in some sense, has, reduced what is supposed to be the collective aspirations of our youth. But at the same time, I think to a large extent, people are being pushed to the wall. It is getting to a point that the question is no longer whether people are going to protest or whether indeed there is a reason to protest, but the form of the protest and the date of the protest. And I hear people say, well, you need leadership, there has to be organization. And for me, I don't think that argument persuades some of us. Some of us are not persuaded by it. I don't think young people necessarily need to come together to say, oh, we are nominating person A, B, C, and D to be our representatives. Because the issues that is leading or is making people to call for a round of protest, another round of protest, are issues that are common to most Nigerians. Hunger, unemployment, inflation, the fact that despite what the country is experiencing, an economy that has almost collapsed, we still see profligacy. We still see the government waste resources. So the youths are watching, young people are watching. They are looking at the convoy of the president. They are looking at the aircraft that the president is purchasing. They are looking at the yachts that they want to buy. They are looking at the earnings of National Assembly members. They are looking at the expenditure that we are seeing on a daily basis. And they are asking themselves, how do you tell us not to protest? How do you tell us not to come together? And yet you are dissipating our resources. So I believe that the question is not whether people are going to protest. The question is, for how long will that protest last?
So do you feel that this Nigerian youth feels safe enough to hit the streets, considering what happened during the NSAS protest? Because it went on for quite a while till there was some form of military intervention and allegedly lives were lost. I mean, there was a whole panel set up by the Lagos state government, and even when the youth have tried to organize themselves to do other protests subsequently, we've seen a lot of police officers on the road. We've seen a lot of intimidation. So do you feel that the average Nigerian youth is ready to risk their life or feel safe enough that it is their right to hit the streets?
I think most Nigerian youths have taken inspiration from the from the very resounding statement of the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who had tweeted in the past warning the police not to harass Nigerians or to harass people who are protesting. And if you go on social media, you will also see documented statements issued in the past by this president encouraging public protest. It is the same for other people in the government. So when we look back, I believe that Tinubu is actually a supporter of protests. His public statements in that regard are very clear. And those who are going to come out to protest, they are not going to be inhibited by intimidation, by threats, because what is the issue really about? The policeman on the streets who is being given an AK-47 to shoot at a protester, when he goes back home, is also affected by the economy. Our soldiers that are being deployed to stop people from protesting, they are also victims of the misgovernance. Even personnel of the self-security service, they have families. They are affected by what is going on. So I think we have gotten to a point that we are all collective victims of the misrule. So whether the government wants to engage, whether the government wants to have a conversation, whether the government wants to listen or not, it is up to them. But one thing is certain. I don't think Nigerians are willing to be a conquered people. I don't think we are ready to live in a country where we cannot exercise our constitutional rights. Because that is the point that we have to stress, that protesting is not a gift, right? It is not something that the government say, oh, I have decided to give it to you today. As a matter of fact, Section 39 of our Constitution guarantees the right to freedom of expression. Section 40 of the Constitution guarantees the right to peaceful assembly and association. And in exercising that right, you don't need the consent of the police. Indeed, even when the law enforcement agencies, for example, as they typically do, come out to say, oh, we have gathered intelligence that hoodlums are going to hijack the protest, that miscreants are going to take over, are going to cause
mayhem, damage to buildings.
The law remains that even when you have gathered such intelligence, even when you believe that that protest will turn violent, you do not have the right to stop it. And this is an argument that we have fought and won in courts, including the case of Inspector General of Police and ANPP, where the then General Buhari led members of his party to protest. And the case of, Charlie Boy Oputa and Inspector General of Police, the courts have made this clear. So even when you believe there will be violence, people still have the right to protest.
And this government needs to respect the rule of law. I'd like to move to Joyce Daniels. I'd like you to weigh into the conversation around the readiness of the Nigerian youth to protest. Are Nigerian youth ready? Are they going to hit the streets? And if yes, do they need to be organized, or as soon as it affects everyone just needs to come out of their own volition?
Thank you, Isabella. I think Nigerian youths are indeed ready to protest. Around me, I hear a lot of younger people say they are ready because they're just tired of being, as it were, sidelined. The word is, they feel like they're not cared for, they're not listened to. I think my colleague in the studio has said a lot already. They feel like the government just takes advantage of youth and doesn't care. Like, make una try now, do your worst, that kind of thing. So many are indeed ready. Whether they need to be organized, I don't think so. I think they just need to show up in the different groups that they belong to. And even if you don't belong to any group and you feel like you're a part of, it resonates with you, the issues resonate with you, and you want to go out there, then go out there and just do it right. The thing is, you want your voice to be heard, not necessarily to be violent. You just want your voice to be heard. So yes, to the youths who are ready to go out, I think this is the time.
Joyce, I also want to ask, have the protests been effective? And is this the strategy that should be employed by the youth? Or should there be some maybe engagement with the government, maybe at policy level, at National Assembly level? Or is protesting the right strategy for now?
Protests is one of the right strategies. Yes, there would be engagement. Yes, people have been writing open letters. Some groups and civil society organizations have been reaching out to government to engage. And protest is just one of many other tactics that can be employed in the strategy to engage government.
Okay, I'll move to you, Inibehe. Are protests really guaranteed to give results, going by what we've seen in the past? Would you consider those protests successful, and will such protests be successful like we've seen in other climes like Kenya, for example?
There is no alternative to protest. I think that is just the truth of the matter. We are dealing with people that are intentionally deaf. We are dealing with people that are deliberately blind to the voices of our people and to the collective suffering of the Nigerian masses. So when the question is asked, that is protest the solution? You can also ask, it's a rhetorical question. Because if protest is not the solution, what is the solution? Are we going to go to the National Assembly? We are not lawmakers. Those
right, like Joy said, writing letters, engaging with lawmakers.
Who are you going to write the letter to? Are you going to write letter to people who don't even have the time to read? Because if they have the time to read, they should be conversant with the problems of the country. And what is the debate even about? It took protests to end colonialism. It took protests to end military rule. It took protests to end apartheid in South Africa. It took protests to even bring the APC to power. In 2012, the whole country was shut down for 2 weeks. President Tinubu supported it. Those who are in this government supported it. So there is no alternative to protest. It is a democratic means of civic engagement. When people are not heard, they have the right to come out. And it's not a localized matter. Whether it's in the US, we see people protest for all sorts of things. Protest is a global phenomenon. We don't have an alternative to protest. Particularly, 1 year has passed. Nigerians have been patient. We've given the president 1 year. Because it's not just about the president.
So Nigerians need answers now. And one way to listen to a government, in your own words, that is deliberately deaf and blind, is to hit the streets. I'll move over to Joyce. And right now, I want you to address the issue of polarization. Inibehe had already spoken about it, where people are polarized on political lines. For example, Bayo Ononuga, a presidential media aide, has accused the 2023 presidential candidate of the opposition Labour Party, Peter Obi's supporters, of planning anti-hunger protests on August 1st, claiming they aim to create chaos in Nigeria. Do you agree? Do you agree on this polarization? And is it enough to bring some sort of destability to the planned protests?
When I read that tweet this morning by Bayo Onanuga, I was so disgusted by it. It's one of the most silly tweets. It's a blindsided. It's inconsiderate to say that only supporters of Peter Obi are interested in protesting. We have videos rife online by APC members, APC supporters, APC apologists, Tinubu supporters, who are also going through the crunch in the country and are calling for better governance. They're calling for better transparency. They're calling for cost of governance to be cut. So for Bayo Onanuga or anybody else to, zero it in and polarize the discussion is playing on the intelligence of people, and I think it should be discouraged. It's a polarizing statement, and it is totally and completely condemned by myself and many others who read it. The hunger in the land, the anger in the land is not only felt by people who support Peter Obi. It's felt by all Nigerians. Everyone is buying petrol at the same rate. Everyone is experiencing the crunch in hunger and all the issues with importation and selling business. So how can he even put that on? Well, then again, it's Bayo Onanuga. He doesn't surprise us by some stuff that he writes on social media.
Inibe, over to you. That polarization which you spoke of, is that enough to destabilize the efforts? Are people going to go back to what happened at the polls in 2023, where people were going against each other on religious lines, on ethnic lines, on just different ideologies? Are we going to see the same thing play out during the protests?
I want to first, join my voice with the guests from the other end to say that the utterly embarrassing and provocative statement by Bayo Onanuga stands condemned. We must learn as a country to deplatform people who use their offices to create chaos. That statement that he made is highly offensive, and this is coming from a person who, from his tweets in the past, has supported protests. In fact, I even quoted one of them where he said, "Let Jonathan go, let subsidy remain." So this is somebody who historically has been opposed to government, and suddenly, because his stomach is being filled, is now trying to demonize, to create division. We have to condemn such rhetorics. But regarding the issue of polarization, for me, I feel that Nigerians must ask themselves the question, right? Because when Buhari was president, some of our brothers and sisters in the north felt, well, we have one of us in power. At the end, Katsina, where he lives, where he comes from, was barely habitable. The north was ravaged by banditry. People were slaughtered. Hunger had escalated. So it is never about side. It is never about religion.
Inibe, that's all we can take on this segment. Thank you very much for joining us on Rubbin Minds. And thank you, Joyce Daniels, for your contributions on Rubbin Minds. A popular saying goes, worry no dey carry last. And you'll agree that in the area of comedy, worry actually produces some of the top comedians Nigeria has ever produced. It's a pleasure to have African queen of comedy, Anita, real worry pikin herself. Welcome to Rubbin Minds. Anita, welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you so much. Thank you. How are you?
I'm well. It's a pleasure to have you here. I want to go right into the conversation, because when it comes to that worry blend of comedy, it's really gained prominence in the 90s, at least growing up in 2000s with stand-up comedy. But now that we have technology coming, we have skit makers, we have people who have taken their trade off the stage to online. Would you say there's been some kind of decrease in the love for stand-up comedy? Is it something that we might not see as much because of technology?
Oh, yes, you're very correct. If care is not taken, we will see that happen, right? But it's not just because of technology. It's not just because of technology. You know how the stand-up comedy industry is as regards Okubo.
Like
Okubo
sponsorship.
Some money, you know.
Yes.
Online, you tend to make more money online. You know, you tend to make more money online when you do online skits, when you do online comedy. But offline, there's really not much money for now.
And when you compare both of them,
but of course,
When you compare both of them, you see that a lot of costs go into doing these shows. You have to sell tables, you have to look for sponsorship. So would you say that the value that is being offered to the sponsors is not as much compared to sponsors who would prefer to go and put their ads on online skits? Is it a thing of value, or is it a thing of preference of the end consumer and the people that are putting their money?
So I think it's a thing of value because it's actually different. If people advertise online, they get like instant, reactions, and of course afterwards, because it's going to be online for a while. But say stand-up comedy or rather shows is just one day, right? That's why it's good when you are doing stand-up comedy and you still have online presence, so you give much value to these brands. Like me, for example, my show is coming up and the show is not yet happening. It is, I think it's in another week. It's on Sunday, but I've been doing a lot of promotions online so the brands could get value. So everything still depends on the stand-up comedian doing the show, and of course the arrangement between the stand-up comedian and the brands who is sponsoring.
Now let's go back in time. Was it always your dream to go into comedy, or is this something, because when you think about Warri, you think most people from Warri can make you laugh because it has such a famed reputation, but is this something that was a dream from childhood, and who are the people that nurtured that dream? Who are the people you looked up to?
Okay, so it wasn't in the books, like it was not part of what I wanted. I never saw myself as a stand-up comedian. But of course, like you said, every average Wafarian is funny. Every average Wafarian is a comedian. The way we talk, our mannerism and everything. I read political science in school, and whilst I was in school, I was doing professional dancing. I used to dance professionally, host events, departmental events, faculty events here and there in school, and then as you host events, one or two things, you make everybody laugh, but in 2018, the in thing was, online skits, the online podcast. And again, to be a human being, you need to evolve. You can't look and say, what you call the evoke? How can I make more money? And how can I, involve myself and make do with what I have, with what of the talent that I have, and which is stand-up comedy. So I started feeding it, I started learning it, started giving it food to make it, make sense. And that's how I found myself doing stand-up comedy and online comedy. So it was never in the books.
And who were the people you looked up to at that time? Were there enough female role models, enough females in the space? Or was it something that maybe even challenged you?
Say when you run for road, when they pursue you, now determine how you take run. and another thing will determine again how they pursue you. We fly or they pursue you, how you take run. So at that point, it's more than motivation. But of course, I always look forward to, I always look up to Boss AY, Boss Bovi. They actually, they've actually lived up to English hard. Anyways, so I've
talk for the Wafi
and actually helped my. I need to balance that, that so not everybody understand pidgin. So Boss Bovi and Boss AY are one of the people who actually, even when I started, I had conversations with them. As a matter of fact, whenever I walk on my set for comedy, before I go perform, I'll call Boss Bovi. Bros, how far I'll see my set, then he helped me cross the T's and dot the I's, and remove some things, had something to make it really, appealing and very strong. So those are one of the people I look up to in the stand-up comedy industry.
Now, the other part of the question was addressing female representation in the industry. Do we have enough female comedians? Are there things in place to encourage more women to get into that comedy space? Because it's interesting when you mentioned people you looked up to, Bovi, Boss AY. Yes. These are men.
Yes. there are no more, there are no women, I think I can actually count them, that are really doing stand-up comedy right now. There's this girl, she's really hot right now. Her name is MC Royal. She's even going to be in my show. She was in my show in Ghana. Because when I did my show in Abuja last year, I'm like, no female comedian. So I did a post on my page saying, if you know any female comedian, we're good, but not get platform, tag them. And I was shocked. I saw a lot of people tagged, and I reached out to them, via their DMs and all. It was just few of them who had like few videos of them doing stand-up comedy here and there, some of the other TikTok videos and everything. And I had conversations with them, and they'll tell you it's a male-dominated industry, and it's really hard. For a woman to be male-dominated industry, you need to work twice as hard before they go talking about because you fine, I mean you funny. So I started having conversations with them, encouraging them. Now, it's not easy for this male-dominated industry, but you need to know the craft and you need to be very strategic. And I feel like we need more stand-up comedians that are female to, fill up the space. We need encouragement from individuals. I remember when I won Stand-up Comedy of the Year by Jujumo Award, not be small cause the cost for comment session. It's funny. Yeah, this about woman go win them when there are guys there, And if other upcoming female comedians see those comments, they will go back to their shell. They wouldn't want to, push. There are a lot of talented, very funny female comedians, but because of a lot of factors, first you are a woman. For you to be a woman for this part of the world, first the world they give you 1-0. And then the society, and there's how people see women, you're on stage, holding mic, even till now, I still get it as big as I am. You want to stand up, you want to do MC, they're like, who is the MC? You. So you just need to shop with Didi as a woman. When you don't understand the dynamics around the industry, you need to shop with Didi. Tell yourself, say, oh, die. We'll do it regardless.
And well done to you for using your platform to encourage more women. A lot of people will say that women are their worst enemies, but in your case, you're using your show to push out other female talent. So maybe a bit more of that, and we'll begin to see more female comedians. And obviously, the men also have to throw their weight of support when they are doing their shows to get more women on board. But
they do. They try their best.
Let's move to the home side of things. How are you able to balance everything? Because being out there, putting your brand out there, putting yourself out there, of course, you have a family. How are you able to balance some of the negativity that comes with the job, and also the time that it requires of you to perform your craft?
Okay, so it's very hard. It's one of the hardest things. It's one of the hardest tasks. But at the end of the day, we have to do what we have to do. So, balancing home front and career and everything. I feel for me, first of all, you can't take out the God factor. Shout out to God, like he did my back like Zima, right? Apart from the God factor, I think I have support system. No man is an island. If you do all these things by yourself. I have the best team in the world. They are there physically, spiritually, mentally. They're just there to really help me to push this. And I've been so fortunate to have the right people around me who understand the vision, who know what I want. Like when I say something, they are there to flesh it out. So what has really helped me so far is the support system. Even in the home front, my husband is so supportive. He's so supportive of me, and that's why it's easy for me to do what I have to do. Just imagine, say, I'm married husband, I'm not the support that I do. I'm not funny now.
It won't be funny.
Monday morning, they start area where they play Monday motivation. So the support system, the God factor, and I have family that supports me. My mom will just call me and pray for me and say, "Go! I saw your video. You're making me proud. Keep going." When you have people that you can talk to. My best friend is in the UK, Rebecca. Sometimes I feel so down. I feel inadequate. I feel like I'm not doing enough. Maybe I'm stressed out. Motherhood. Maybe I'm trying to get the job done. And then she's just talking to you. So I've just had the right people around me.
The right people around you.
And I try to prioritize. I try to do the right thing. When it's time for work, it's work. When it's family, it's family. So in the future, your picking up will tell you, say, "Mommy, you were not there for us."
True.
I get proof. So I think the support system is really.
Another thing that has helped you, and you've been very open about your journey, your weight loss journeys, is having good health. And you received quite some backlash when you came out very openly about having the gastric sleeve in, and even the process of maintaining the weight loss. How are you able to deal with that negativity, and what's your message to other comedians, other people who are not okay with their health and are considering surgery but are afraid of what people will say?
Okay, so I stopped hearing you for a bit.
So I said the whole issue with body positivity. Did you hear body positivity and your weight loss? You've been very open about your journey in losing weight and even maintaining that weight loss over a period of 1 year, despite the negative comments. So what message do you have for people within this industry that is fond of body shaming people, whether it's comedians, entertainers, skit makers? What message do you have for them?
Yes.
Warrior Pikin, are you still there? Warrior Pikin.
That reminds me, I did my surgery. A lot of them reached out to me to say, hey, you came out and you say something like this. How dare you? Do you want to go crazy? Do you want to be depressed? And I tell them that I don't see 99, forget 100. In the midst of the hate, in the midst of the dragging, the trolling, there are still people who need to be motivated by my story. There are still people who need this. There are still people who have been in the journey with me who this will benefit. And there are also good comments as well. So I don't really pay attention to the drags, as a matter of fact, I've actually lived above it. I've understood that not everybody will like you. Not everybody, me, if I like. So I tell them that I'm good. And so far, it's been 1 year, and I know that a lot of people have, come to terms with the fact that being overweight has a lot of danger, and they've started working on their lifestyle, changing their diet, and they are better today. So I encouraged them. I said, that's the best decision. Coming out there to say it. I can as well just keep quiet, because I know me, they drag me. You're quiet, you're not quiet, they'll still drag you. There are a lot of intelligent people out there who will know that I did something, And besides the major reason why I even came out to say it was because I just want people to get inspired. And also, there are a lot of people that are like me, who are foodies, who have eating disorder, who are going through a lot. And this is a shortcut to kickstart the journey. And if you have the money, you have the mind to do it. Why not?
And that support system, because you always spoke about how supportive your family has been throughout that process. Now, what can we expect from you? You spoke a bit about your show. Are we expecting more stand-up comedy performances? Are you taking that show beyond places in Nigeria? You spoke about Ghana. Just let us into what to expect from Real Warrior Pikin.
Expect from me. Okay, so Real Warrior Pikin comedy show started 2 years ago. This is like my 7th edition. The first season was Real Warrior Pikin Unfiltered. I did in Warri, Abuja, Ghana, Milton Keynes, Manchester, and London. Right? So this is the season 2, which is Real Warrior Pikin Unapologetically Me. And it's happening on Sunday, July 28th, this day, Doom Abuja. And this is going to be my 7th edition, and it's going to be mind-blowing. And of course, I'm going to do US next year, do my Europe tour. I'm thinking of doing African tour. If it doesn't happen next year, maybe 20 to 26. So I'm really it's not easy. It's not easy, like I said.
Because you said there's a decrease in the amount of people that want to put their money behind these kind of shows. But yet, what's giving you that motivation to dream even bigger, considering that patronage is on the decline?
That's because I give a lot of value. Like I said, you that is a stand-up comedian doing shows, when you know there's a decline in sponsorship, you need to come up with ways that you can give them value. All they want is value. So you can start working on your social media brand, because that is the extra value that you can give them besides the publicity you're going to give them on the show. A lot of them, to get sponsors this year was difficult for me, but I had to, give them more value, make them understand that it's not just us. The economy get the way it did too. The economy is turning on its own. So, it's just you. Everything there our hand last as stand-up comedians. And at the end of the day, stand-up comedy still needs to flow. It still needs to go. It still needs to go on. So we have to put in a lot of work.
And it still needs to go on.
It still needs to go on because it's life. It's different from skits. Skit is online skit. This one is life experience coming with
and there will always be people that value that.
Online comedy can't take the place of stand-up comedy. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Online can't take the place of stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy is different.
Thank you, Real Worry Pikin. And we wish you all the best with your upcoming shows across Nigeria and beyond.
Thank you so much.
All the best. Thank you for joining us on Rubbin Minds.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. Now, there's something that a lot of Nigerians are constantly talking about, and that's the price of food. You go to the market, and today the cost of a pint of tomatoes is maybe 5,000. Next day you go and it's 15,000 and it's 20,000. It keeps fluctuating, and most times it's on the rise. And you start to wonder, how are people still running food businesses and remaining profitable? Are they decreasing the kind of ingredients they are using? Are they substituting? You'd go and get pepper soup, and instead of seeing yam, you probably see sweet potato, which is cheaper. So it's an interesting conversation around the realities of everyday market prices. And would like to hear from a food vendor. We're joined by Chef Tucker Moore, who is a chef and also an entrepreneur. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for honoring our invitation. Now, how has the current level of food inflation impacted your business? Are you one of those people that will substitute yam in pepper soup for sweet potato? Are you changing ingredients? I know there was a time where some people even stopped doing tomato-based stew and started doing banga and palm kernel stew.
Cucumber.
Cucumbers too, and watermelons.
Yes, the inflation has affected my business greatly, as well as other businesses in the country. And thankfully, it's something that is known to both the consumers as well as we, the service providers, that this is the current state of things in the country. What we now have to do is, become creative with how we offer things on the menu, and letting them know what the expectations can be in terms of pricing, in terms of expectation, in terms of quality of produce in their food, and also switching up menus occasionally, to capture what is readily available at a much lower cost in the country.
So what are those creative ways? Is it through substitution? How are you able to still source your produce? Are you having to, I believe it's the First Lady who said we should all start growing things in our backyard. Yes. Have you started doing that as a way to combat food inflation?
Well, no, but we have locally, we have vendors who supply us with local produce. Before now, we would buy things like cherry tomatoes, but we have our local tomatoes that are also sweet, sometimes come in that small sizes. We are now looking, into local produce as opposed to going to buy international products from before. So now we are now having to, incorporate these readily available produce in the country into our menu.
And how is your audience reacting, your customers? How are they reacting to this localization of your menu?
Well, thankfully for myself, my clients know me to be an Afrofusion person. I take Western recipes and I infuse Nigerian ingredients into it. So I think that the play there has been a bit fair because of, in terms of expectations, it's what they are used to. It's the ingredients I use, very, very occasionally.
And how are you able to still maintain quality? So is it a case of reducing the quantity to maintain the quality, or is an outright change of the menu so you can still guarantee the same size, but it's just a different meal?
Well, it can happen in several ways. Like in my business now, I would speak to my business. The changes hasn't been like a lot, to be fair, because thankfully the clients sometimes can afford the changes in prices. We have changed prices a lot of times because of the current cost of things in the market, and they have accepted most of them. But in other cases, we have like a slightly watered down kind of menu that we also let them know that this is also available. If you can't meet your price point, we can offer you this. However, it is still made from the freshest produce, it's quality. Yeah, if you can have salmon, then you can maybe have Titus, in that kind of case.
Okay, so having an alternative with different ingredients, so you can still guarantee quality
yes.
and even the sizes. But are there any specific ingredients you've had to cut out or totally replace?
Replace? No. I've only had to cry all the time about the cost of things. But I think one specific thing that has just kept skyrocketing is dairy produce, especially butter, and then cooking cream. It has been off the roof. And these are ingredients that are not, you can't substitute them. You can't get butter from any other source. It's from cows. You can't buy a cow as well to milk it and then get the butter out of it. So we have to buy them. It's shocking.
It's interesting you say that, because I remember seeing a video online and saying that the cooking cream was 17,000 and people are now using powdered milk with water and flour to thicken it. But obviously it can't give you the same consistency and taste.
In terms of the fat content that helps, give sauces their body or help things to coagulate better. I'm speaking to the components of a machine produced cooking cream now. I mean, it will have the same mouthfeel, slightly same mouthfeel. However, they're incomparable.
So just a lot of crying and passing that burden to the customers in how much they're paying. What about things like tomatoes, for example? Do you use that? Because a lot of times you go online and it's the cost of tomatoes, tatashe, rodo, things that we used to do stew, and that's why people are now coming up with cucumber stew. Have you experimented with cucumbers?
No. Interestingly, I've not had to do that. Yes, I mean, for stews in the Nigerian culinary world, stews are made from tomatoes, and I believe they should be kept that way. They should be made from tomatoes. I think prices in tomatoes have dropped just slightly over the past 2 weeks from our last purchase for the company. So I think it's a price that has just been going up and down. However, I think it's affordable in terms of you could get the size, the pocket size you can get. Well, everybody can afford to buy tomatoes, so we've not had to, cut that out from our menu at all.
What about things like eggs? Because we've seen that skyrocket, and just like dairy, it hasn't really come down.
It hasn't. For eggs as well, what we've had to do now is partner with large farms that can make, supplies to us. If you're buying certain quantities, you get certain discounts. That's how we've had to survive, because buying it in smaller units, you are going to be spending the child's school fees buying eggs. Yeah.
What would you say is that one cost of produce that shocked you the most during this whole period?
I think we've just talked about it. It's butter. If my colleagues are watching this, I'm sure they know we cry all the time about it.
With butter,
it's such an integral part of pastry making, because I was originally a pastry chef. You can't do without butter. It's used in cakes, it's used in buttercream, all of these things, and then you can't cut it out. You just have to make those purchases.
Some would actually substitute for margarine, which won't give you the same effect. And is there an opportunity for local manufacturers to go into making butter? Because a lot of the high quality butter is imported into the country.
Yes, I believe we can. if livestock can be can be put aside for the purpose of creating butter. I mean, we have that in the north. If companies can begin to look into that, I'm sure it would cut down the prices. Well, until then, we have to deal with inflation from importation.
And for now, what will you say are the best produce to buy for the people who are watching that are in season and at the best cost?
In terms of
produce.
Okay.
So someone is watching and is thinking, okay, I shouldn't buy avocados now because they're out of season and they're charging maybe 2,000 naira for one avocado or 1.5. So what are those things in season that you can still get at a good cost, like fresh produce but in season?
I think tomatoes are coming back. So compared to the past couple of weeks or months, people have not been crying about those things. I would advise you go to Mile 12 markets. There are very good vendors there who would sell to you. Potatoes as well are coming back as well. Onions too are coming back. So things like those.
Okay. Now, to your craft, being an entrepreneur and a chef, how important has social media been to your journey? There's a popular advert that says the phone eats before we eat, because once you go and get a nice meal, whether it's made in your home by a chef or at a restaurant, the first thing you do is bring out your phone and you record before you actually eat
the food.
Yes.
Social media has played the biggest role. In terms of putting my work out there, in terms of advertisements, it's literally like a catalog. People come on social media and see things I have done in the past. So it has been it has played the most vital role, apart from the back end work, the kitchen. Social media shows people what we are up to every other minute. So yes, it's very integral.
And for those restaurants where a lot of people go there to take pictures and pay so much money and the food is at supper, do you feel that that's what people want now from restaurants? Nice aesthetics for Instagram as opposed to great food?
No, obviously not. I don't support that at all, because I pay attention to customer experience, which also involves the kind of things they eat, the kind of things you put on your plate for them. I feel like restaurants need to do better. If you're watching this, you should probably do better. It's something that requires a bit of meticulous thinking. Hiring the right staff, ensuring you have the right people behind the kitchen, behind the stove, cooking these meals for your guests. Because I dine out as well. Apart from being a chef, I go out to have food. Like on a Sunday, have brunch with friends. I have high expectations, and I expect that they are met because I'm spending money.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much, Chef Toka Umo, chef and entrepreneur, for joining us on Rubbin Minds.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be closing the show right here on Rubbin Minds. My name is Isabella Adediji. Do join us next week for yet another episode of Rubbin Minds. Good afternoon.